Hey guys, welcome back. We're gonna talk today about how you should go about figuring out if what you're buying is the real deal, if it's the fake deal, and there's some pretty egregious signs that can be present. But you know what happens when it's too good to be true? It probably is, but people still will. They want to grasp. They want the cheapest price. They want it. They want it now. They want it quick. They want to not pay fees on it. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of ways that you can get screwed over on this stuff. Be careful. If you're going to take a risk, make sure that you have a backup plan. You have some buyer protection or something of the sort. Make sure you know how to identify the real deal versus a fake deal. They might not, the seller might not show you pictures of the fake cards that they're going to send. They might show you pictures of the real card. Then they sell you the fake ones, and voila, you're in a whole lot of mess. So just because the listing, there's clearly things that you can look out for in the listings themselves. There's clearly signs that this stuff is fake to begin with. We've seen it many times. Let's get into, we got a couple examples here of people are asking. So if you didn't know, you can probably go on E4. You can probably come into my Discord. If you have pictures of something, they need to be high quality pictures in order to be able to determine a lot of the time whether or not it's a real deal. And even if the photos are the real deal, that does not mean that you're going to get what you asked for. It doesn't mean you're going to get anything, really. They could just not ship you anything if they have the means of stealing your money. Now, first one here, first post on E4. We got a couple examples we're going to point out. First of which is these are Munch fakes. Am I missing anything? So, Gassen E4. Gassen E4? My apologies. Don't know how to pronounce it. Hello, I have been a lurker in the forums here for some time as I work on my Japanese collection, but I wanted to engage a bit more. I've been mulling over at last going back and grabbing the Munch promos, but across various auction/flea market sites, I notice a slew of listings that either far exceed going market prices or are either much too good to be true. Careful. Example in point, I came across several lots for a complete set of all 5 ranging from 800 to 1,000 USD. When everything I have seen would seem to indicate that just the Mimikyu alone could potentially go for that. I grabbed a screenshot of the one going for about 800 USD, but from a seller with perfect feedback and hundreds of recorded transactions. So it depends, like if it's on eBay, be careful. We've seen the most egregious of scammeronis in Urgent Dylan who had 100% feedback, because anytime someone called him on something being fake, if the stamps looked bad, if the box looked bad, he would just refund them. He would have them set it back. Voila, perfect feedback. So just because the feedback is perfect doesn't mean there isn't something nefarious going on. Doesn't mean that he isn't just scamming you when you fall for it. Now we have a picture here again of the 5 cards. A lot of this is just like, again, if they're selling this, they might not send you the actual cards from the photo. They might send you something else. Sometimes it's very hard if it's not high quality photos. You're really not going to be able to investigate for sure whether or not they're the real thing, unless there's something egregious that's standing out that's going to throw it off. But again, some of the artifacts and stuff like that you might see on a scan of a card, if they scan a card and then they print it out themselves, they're not necessarily going to be visible until you get in close. Maybe you need some magnification. Maybe you need to be holding it in hand. You need to know what they look like, what they feel like when you receive it, so that you can open a claim. If it's eBay, you gotta open the claim pretty quickly. At this point in time, they changed the rules. Make sure you receive it, you get it on the day of receipt, you check it for authenticity. There's certain stuff that you probably don't need to check into. If you're buying a reverse Bulbasaur from a modern set, it's probably not fake. And if it was fake, you'd probably be able to tell just at first glance. But with these Japanese cards, a lot of the ones that, like the screen promos, the ponchos, a lot of that stuff that is jacked the hell up in value, there are a lot of counterfeits on the market. You need to be careful, especially if you're not familiar with what the cards look like, or what they're supposed to look like, what they're supposed to feel like. Do your research. Be careful, because there's a lot of money in that stuff. The price alone seems much too low, but that alone, I am inclined to judge the set as fake. But I poured over the few and not exactly clear photos available, comparing them with official photos on the Japanese Pokemon TCG site and searching this forum for similar inquiries. So I think the best way to go about looking at photos or comparison photos, if you don't have the exact same thing, I mean, compare the card backs. The card backs, surely, if you're buying these, you have some Japanese cards laying around. You can take a look at the back to make sure that they're the real deal. Chances are, if they're printing them, they're probably printing them on a brand new cardstock, brand new whatever. Yes, you have to be careful that they're not like printing on an actual card back, but that's a good place to start nonetheless. And make sure that I guess the print method, the print quality is the same. I tell you guys a million times, go spend a few dollars on eBay or Amazon. Grab yourself a lv.x, probably is the sweet spot. It doesn't work great for showing through the camera. We're going to have to bring the microscope videos back. I think I'm looking at setting up the one that I have here next to me. And hopefully we can do a little bit more investigation, especially the polished cards and stuff like that. I want to see if I can easily identify a polished card, and then we can pass that information on to the grading companies. They're not going to be impressed that they might have to buy a microscope for each of their individual graders, but tough shit. If you want to charge money, you got to be providing a viable service. In this case, I came up with relatively little. These do not appear to have the wrong finish. They do not appear to be discrepancies with design, font, or card texture. So a lot of the time, just looking at photos side by side, if stuff is going outside of the border, if stuff doesn't line up, you can tell it's a fake. Sometimes, if it's a scan, if it's a direct scan, it's going to be hard to tell unless there's very clear images, unless you have them in hand, that kind of thing. However, the one close-up photo available would seem to show not quality. I apologize if my terminology is incorrect. That should not be visible with the naked eye. So that's the thing too. The print quality is usually going to be pretty bad, and there's a lot of scans online. You can look at already graded examples. Be careful. These and the ponchos, there are fake graded copies as well. So then you need to be able to identify. There's a lot in here. Before you start spending thousands of dollars on Pokemon cards, you need to know what you're looking at. I know it's a surprise, maybe not a surprise for most of the people watching this, but I'm sure some of the people that are just getting into this stuff, be careful. You got to be careful. You got to learn. It's going to take some effort. You can't just throw money at it and hope that you don't get scammed. Moreover, while I could see someone arguing the colors appear to be off, the colors are tough too, because with colors, the biggest issue is the fact that if it's a different camera, if it's different lighting, all sorts of things can make the colors. Even the colors on the card itself can vary to some extent within the process. Sometimes it's a little heavy on a certain color of ink, sometimes not. Modern English, man, you see some cards that if they go hard on the black, it's super dark. If they can be like extra magenta, and it just, the whole card looks different, especially side by side. Ordering them in order to do a translucency test and printing quality check with a jeweler's loupe also seems a bridge too far. So, I mean, if you're looking for a deal, that's kind of the extra. You either order, maybe you pay a premium, you order it from somebody reputable. It's already graded. You know what it's looking. You know that you're probably in safe hands. Now, if you're ordering them yourself and there's some risk involved, any risk involved whatsoever, my apologies, but you need to test the card. You need to at least give it a look over. A jeweler's loupe is a few dollars. It's just like if you own a card that's more than a couple $100 and you don't have a jeweler's loupe, what are you doing? I'll put links down below. But essentially any jeweler's loupe, it can have a light on it. It doesn't need a light on it. It can be as cheap as possible. $3, $5, whatever they are now. I think they were $3 before. They might be closer to $5 now on the cheaper end. Also seems a bridge too far. I am transitioning from opening Japanese products exclusively to also ordering singles and want to level up my tool set in order to make more informed purchases. If there are additional issues with these cards that anyone notices, I would be extremely grateful to avail of advice. Thank you in advance. So yeah, if it's too good to be true, this old boy is saying I would never buy a raw card. You can buy raw cards. Don't be afraid to buy a raw card. Just make sure that you're doing it the same way that you, even if it's a PSA graded card, you need to be careful. They could send you a fake graded copy. It could have the same cert number on it. And if you're not careful, you're not checking, you're not getting it, you're not buyer protected, you can get screwed over. They could send you a box with a juice box in it, They could put anything. They could put used toilet paper. That's probably illegal. Do not put used toilet paper in a package and send it to people if you're scamming anyone. That's probably just going to get you in more trouble. But regardless here, when you have, if you've received the cards, and once you've received the cards, or if you can get better photos from whoever the seller is, then you can post them online. But make sure they're good photos. Otherwise, you're going to get little to no information. Outside of the fact that, like, okay, let's look at an example here. Let's say the where's a good one here? Let's say the Pikachu's foot here. Let's say it's in the wrong spot. Maybe it's moved over. Maybe his tail is like fully showing or something like that on the edge of the card itself. These, yes, someone's going to be able to tell you. They're going to just look side by side and say, hey, yeah, it's fake. It's clearly fake. These don't have hollow patterns, so that's kind of a downside to them. The centering, the cut, all of that stuff can come into play. You can kind of identify fakes that way. But the biggest thing is just Google the card. Google the card. You're going to be graded copy, graded examples. Make sure it's a real graded example. So make sure it's coming from like the PSA actual website, a cert verification or something like that. You can take a look at that. You can blow it up in size. You'll notice here, you do see some Etsy stuff going on. A lot of that stuff will vary, whether it's available or not. Etsy, Wish, all the nonsense with all the counterfeit crap that they sell. So be careful of those. Some of them are in graded cases. Some of them are not in graded cases. Super duper careful. When there's a lot of money involved, there's incentive for people to make fakes. And even if the people on Etsy are disclosing that it's a proxy, I mean, no one's playing with the Pikachu, the Screamachew. No one is playing Screamachew's in their deck. So them calling it a proxy is just, them avoiding the word counterfeit and or bootleg, because that's pretty much what it is. So you can go on the PSA website. It doesn't matter which one you look up. You can look up a 10. You can look up a 9. You can look up a 69. Any grade that you want. And there should be some pretty decent scans on there. Now, the importance of the scans. Okay. And then, I mean, for here, if you want to take a look at it in more detail, this will only let you zoom so far. So you can just like right click, open a new tab, and or use the shortcut to do so. And then we can give it the old control scroll, if you will. And you can take a closer look here, and you can again, it's not like microscopic. We're not getting into seeing too much of like the rosette pattern involved or anything like that, but we can at least get a closer look. We can take a look at the edge on the bottom here, which is not great considering it's a PSA 10, but never mind that. That's not why we're here. We can take a look at the details, a lot of this stuff, a lot of the shading and stuff like that, if you need to do a quick comparison, because you can do some research beforehand to make sure that you're not just straight up buying a fake, wasting your time, holding up money that could be spent on something else, like a real copy of the card, if that's what you're going after. But yeah, pretty much. Not to mention the fact you got to be careful. You got to make sure that it is filling out the PSA case. We got a little bit to look into that later on in the second example, but that gives you a pretty good idea. You can compare that with your loop. You can give it a look-see. If anything looks off, if anything looks blurry, especially around the text is key. So these should be nice, sharp. The black layer, the white around it should be super duper sharp, especially all your black text. If they're not sharp, I mean, you can kind of see how sharp they are here. I mean, if you zoom in a lot, you might see a little bit of like an artifact around the outside of it. But the real card itself, same with English, is going to have nice, sharp, crispy, clean black lines for the text and stuff like that. If you see that there's like maybe a little bit of gray around them, or if they're not super sharp, if they're kind of like dotted in, then you're in trouble. Same with the text down below here. And that's kind of like not always, but pretty much always the spot where you're going to see some bad stuff going on. I mean, you can look at the text to make sure that there's not like a weird spacing, there's not like typos or anything in like that. But if it's a scan of a card, which is, in my opinion, the most deceitful, the most hard to identify fake or counterfeit, you're going to see that there's some weird stuff going on with the text. Because if the text has shadows, if the text isn't crispy clean, And yes, sometimes when you blow up a shitty picture of one, you're going to have what looks like that, but it might not necessarily be it. All right, next example. It is Japanese counterfeit identifying time. That is a very cool banner. Very angry Pichu. What do you guys think? Are these real 1997 Bandai card ass? So here's the example I say. Like, if you're going to ask people if your stuff is the real stuff, and you have the cards in hand and you have the ability, you clearly have a decent camera, make sure you're taking good enough photos. Don't take them at an angle. Don't take the cards out of the sleeve. Okay. Remember, be courteous here. You're asking for other people's time. So for them to want to help you, they don't want to have to ask for better photos. They don't want to have to like tell you like, well, what the fuck? I can't see anything here, because some of it's blurry. Some of it's out of focus. It's at an angle. The angle is not helping unless you're checking for like texture or something like that. The angle is not doing you any favors. You want it well lit. You want it as high definition as possible. You want it in focus. All of those fun things. Right off the bat, you can kind of see, I'm seeing like there's like a weirdness going on with the cut itself. And also the fact that there might be an extra length on this card, but I can't tell because it's at a weird angle. The thing is too, that not only is it going to be hard to identify if it's like a scan and a print of one of these cards. We got a little bit of color variation there. I'm far from an expert on this, but you might want to look into the fact that like, hey, are there other examples that this is the same photo with two cards next to each other? So like, is that what's going on there? Again, with the text itself, I can't tell if this is blurry because of the image or if it's blurry because it's a scan and print of what is the real card. Same deal with the front side here. The photo is not that bad, but the photo is not great for doing a nice comparison to make sure that the card is the correct size, all that sort of thing. So a lot of that stuff you can do by yourself in person, especially where this individual was buying a lot of the cards from this series. You should be able to put the card on top of another card, make sure that it's the same size, that the corners are cut the same way, all that kind of thing. That we can't really do. And then also we can do the same comparisons. So here we have some discussion about how the fireball from the Charmander is a little bit close to the edge, but it could be that this thing is not cut. So it looks like it is thin on the left-hand side here, but it's hard to tell with the slanted photo. Again, straight from the top as you can. And then you could do almost like an overlay or even the side by side. You should be able to tell what's going on. But this is one of those instances that if you had a jeweler's loop and you have other examples of this card and you can go in and look at the text to make sure the text matches, make sure you don't have any weird artifacts from a scan, that sort of thing. That's what you need to be looking at here. And for people to be able to tell if a card like this in a sleeve, half out of focus, is the real thing. Like you're decreasing your odds of getting good, helpful advice on this. So keep that in mind. And yes, someone will probably ask, or someone should probably ask if they are looking to go out of their way to help you, that you take better photos or clearer photos. But again, also for the time and effort that you took to post these on here, if you had a loop, you could have checked them yourself. Now let's open the photos themselves here, and you'll see just like once you zoom in on this stuff, if it's out of focus, it's not doing you any favors. So can we tell if we can't really tell if the font here is nice and sharp and crisp. In around this stuff, this is a great spot to be looking if you're identifying something wrong with this, if it's a scan, because if they're not the real thing, they're very close to it. Close enough to it that like I can't say with 100% certainty that this is fake. I'm suspicious about it. They were turned down by PSA, who is going to take a closer look at them. Hopefully. But like stuff like in here, this text here, great spot to examine, to check, to make sure that it's the same as the real deal. Unfortunately, from these images, there's no fucking way you can do that. Just not gonna happen. It's blurry, but it also might be blurry because it might be fake. So if they're doing a scan, if they're printing this stuff, this is where the printer, the scan, even to the naked eye, is going to struggle pretty hard with this sort of thing. And again, like I can't tell. It might just be blurry. Image quality is a real hindrance here. We have a little bit of a color variation here with even between these two cards that were both sent back, I believe, with questionable authenticity as the reason for that. Again, all of the shading in here, like if you have these in hand, this should be a very easy, quick check. Even okay, let's say you don't want to spend the $3 to $5 on a jeweler's loop. If you have a decent cell phone, which it looks like they do, and you take a very close up in focus image of this thing in any of these areas where you want to check details, compare details, maybe in here, you should be able to see the rosette. You zoom in after the photo is taken, and you should get some decent detail there. Again, this is if you're going out of your way to save that, or if you wanted to get somebody to check for you if the rosette pattern was the correct one, if the print pattern was the correct one. Again, I'm not super familiar with the card ass stuff, but if you have examples, if somebody else has examples, that's what you want to check. Now we have the back side here, and again we got this is the blown up version of the images. Again, in the sleeve, not totally in focus, and it's just going to be hard to tell if we have any sort of artifact. I mean, it looks like we do, but that could just be the image quality. If it's out of focus, down on the bottom here, you want to check for spacing and stuff like that. Also, like the color, but again, the color can be different. Color can be different from card to card. You want to check on the spacing. You want to make sure that it's the correct font. The spacing between words and the spacing between letters. All very important places to check. But again, if it's a scan, you're going to want to look for artifacts, not necessarily that. This, to me, compared to a real example that I've looked at, the cut itself seems to be a little bit off, but maybe that happens sometimes. You might have to look at many examples in order to figure out what's going on there. I don't know if this white line was a real thing, was a usual thing, but with the spacing on the top here and the graded example that we're going to take a look at, I wouldn't think that we'd have this much space on the bottom. So that's, again, you can just put it on top of another card and make sure that it's the right size. If it's not, then you're probably in trouble. These were all cut out the same way. They were cut into rectangles. They had the corners lopped off, which it seems like is what's going on the top here. But photos not great. Photos are not helping us out here, especially on something that I don't look at every day. And if the Japanese stuff is something that you're looking into, something that you get used to looking at, that you're going to want to do that. So what do we have? We have like a perfect fit on the left-hand side, and we have a regular sleeve on the right-hand side. Just making it difficult. Now, if we look at scans, we immediately start seeing details that we do not in these photos here. Again, it could be the sleeve, it could be the camera quality, it could be the scanner that's doing different things than the photo itself. We want to see details within here. Again, we can look up graded examples. That doesn't mean that the graded example is going to be a real example. Especially with the Japanese stuff, we had grading companies that were over eager, especially with errors, stuff like that are over eager and want to grade things that maybe they shouldn't grade. But again, this is the kind of stuff that you can, if you had a loop, if you had better photos, this is the kind of thing that you can do a comparison. There are lots of images online if you're concerned once you receive it. Now it does require that you can also check for like distance to the border for all of this stuff here. But you should see this relative pattern. It should be pretty similar. Pretty much it. We got an eBay example here of the 000 file number 000. We got the checklist cards, if you will, and we can give it a scroll down. Same thing with this guy here. Now there's like little details on the tail here that I wasn't seeing on the example that he was showing. But again, it could have been washed out. It could have been removed with the photo itself. Like, there's no one that's going to be able to do or make a better comparison than you are. And again, like this scan seems to be a little bit different even though it's also a PSA scan. We can see the detail within that. And there's gonna be little variances, but not a whole lot. The white on the Pokeball here also looks a little bit different. But again, this is something that you have to have a certain amount of expertise in. This one's looking. Oh, so also, yeah, I guess we should get into it. So these are not the traditional size of the Pokemon trading cards. I don't think we have a thread here with the 1997 card as size difference in PSA case. So we have two examples here. We have the Blastoise, which is floating around in there. I think it has the Mylar sleeve. It has the penny sleeve inside to kind of hold it in place, but you can see it's kind of moving around. And then you have the other case here with the thicker borders to make sure that it's the correct size. So I think someone mentioned that they did the same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! They used to like have it in there in the sleeve within the case. So don't let that throw you off. Don't assume like, oh damn, this thing's trimmed to oblivion. I mean, it still has all of the characteristics on it. You do want to be looking out for trimming, whether it's on this stuff, whether it's on actual cards. Hold it up to real examples. Maybe the cheaper ones that you have laying around. They should all be the same size. That's pretty much it. Hopefully this was enlightening. Hopefully, I know it's a little bit of a review for people that are familiar with this stuff, but hopefully it helps a few people out there. You should get a black light as well if you don't have one. Again, it's like $5 or something. $5, $10, Amazon. I think I got a 2-pack. I think it was a 2-pack for like $10 Canadian. So that's more important for if you're looking for like inking, especially with the Pokemon cards around the outside. If you're looking for anything that's been colored in, that sort of thing, that should show up pretty well with the old black light. Whether it's in a graded case or not, maybe even before you crack anything out of a graded case, especially if it's PSA where they have the guarantee, you're probably going to want to check for inking. You're going to want to give it a quick once over. Make sure it's a legitimate card. Make sure it's a real card before you crack it out of the case, because if you crack it out, they're going to be like, oh no, we cannot give you a PSA guarantee. It is not in the case anymore. So even though the guarantee is going to be a pain in the butt, it's probably worth inspect it before you crack it out of the case. Whether you're regrading it, whether you're putting it in a binder or whatever, make sure that you have a real card and that it's not altered. All right, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully helpful. Hopefully we get I'm going to see if I can get the microscope videos up and running again. Those are pretty old at this point. I know, old. But I think we can make better ones, more intuitive ones. Maybe we can do like live streams or something like that with it. Be a fun little change of pace. Nice little throwback to what we were doing before. Spread some awareness. Now, anything that we're doing with the microscope, you can do the same thing with the jeweler's loop. It'll just be easier for me to show it on screen with the microscope than it will be with the jeweler's loop. I mean, it's pretty tough. You'd have to mess around with the webcam and the jeweler's loop to make it kind of show what we want to show. So hopefully we find a nice easy way to do that. And yeah, join the Discord. Thanks for hanging out. Let me know if there's anything that I missed on these that was standing out for any of the experts that are a little bit more in tune with this kind of thing. You got to be careful with the Japanese stuff, the old Japanese stuff. Sometimes there's fakes. Sometimes there's fakes that were made at the time. With the modern stuff, there's a lot of fakes that are being made now. Your Ponchos, your Marios, your Mario Pikachus. All right, join the Discord. See you next time. Bye.